Cassie, I couldn't sleep last night. I felt like the finish was a nightmare, and the Bears will still be playing for the NFC Championship next Sunday in Seattle.
Yeah, it really felt like this was a team of destiny, which we talked at points throughout this season. And I was standing in the end zone when Caleb Williams threw the touchdown pass to Cole Kmet. I looked over to our Bears photographer, Jeff Weiris, and we looked at each other like, oh my gosh, is this happening again? We made our way down the field to the other end zone to see if the Bears could score the game-winning touchdown or hit a field goal in overtime. And then we saw the interception happen. It was like, wow. What a ride. And the thing that I will remember is how silent Soldier Field got in that moment. And then I kind of walked across the field, walked towards the tunnel, and I realized that no fans had left their seats. They were all there giving the Bears a standing ovation. And I think that everyone shares the same sentiment, is there really weren't many expectations like this going into the season. And to see what this Bears team accomplished, how they changed the culture inside the walls here at Halas Hall, how they brought Bears fans, this energized team, and with so many great personalities. That's what I'll remember most, is just how really truly great this team was inside that locker room. And I think that's what Ben Johnson wanted to make sure he hit home about yesterday after the game, calling it a special group, and everyone saying the same thing because of the resiliency, because of the belief, because of the character of the guys inside that locker room. It truly was a special season and a memorable one.
It was a beautiful sight to see the way they all came together, too, because we saw last year where things were for this organization. And in comparison to this year, man, it truly was a miracle effort by the coaching staff. You were in the locker room at Halas Hall today. It's going to take a little time for this ending to set in, isn't it, for the players?
I'm going to say yes and no, and I think it depends on the person. Honestly, not many guys in the locker room today. We were allowed in there for about an hour. We did talk to Caleb Williams today, who said he kind of had a moment to reflect driving home from the game last night, because you're in such a routine when you go through 20 weeks of a season thinking that, all right, you're going to wake up Monday morning, you're going to go to a team meeting at Halas Hall, you're going to watch the film, you're going to break it down, he's going to meet with Ben Johnson, and then you realize none of those things are happening all of a sudden, because it does come to an abrupt end. And so we talked to, I would say, 5 players in the Bears locker room today. Jaquan Brisker was one. I asked him, just because I mentioned this last night, that he was one of the last players sitting at his locker, still wearing his entire uniform, pads included. And I asked him what that moment was about. And he said, well, I'm always one of the last players to leave, but I just wanted to soak it all in, because for him, he doesn't know if he's going to be here next year. He's one of the free agents, played 4 years in Chicago. He said he feels like he left it all out there on the field, especially last night in that game. He was one of the best players on the field for sure. And he just talked about how he wants to be in Chicago, how he feels like showing the Bears that he could play an entire season and stay healthy was a step in the right direction. But there's also a ton of unknowns that are going to come. And then Kevin Byard, another guy who's a free agent, just met with Ben Johnson, Ryan Poles, and he's like, I came here to kind of revive and show that I am the player that I thought I was going to be after a rough couple of years. He got traded, and he just wanted a fresh start. He's on to what will be 11 years, and he's like, I think the feeling's mutual, but you just never know. And at the end of the day, for him, he has to do what's best for his family, and the Bears have to do what's best for this organization. And so I think it's a lot of the same sentiments as we talked about last night of, this will never be the same team. And there are a lot of high character guys in that locker room. And that's kind of where the sadness comes from, is that you just don't know how it's going to be next year. And Byard, is one of the veterans on this team, said, they won the AFC. I think they went to the AFC Championship in 2019. He said he hadn't won a playoff game since then. And so that just puts into perspective how hard it is to get to this point and to win playoff games.
Yeah, that's for sure. I want to go back to the game for a second before we look ahead. What have you learned about Caleb Williams' bad throw resulting in the interception in overtime? Did DJ Moore run the wrong route? Did he not run hard enough? Was it a bad throw from Caleb? What have you learned?
This is one that I think we're going to be talking about for a while, because it's one that, ended that drive for the Bears. And also it's the larger conversation of if DJ Moore's even going to be here next year. I will tell you, he was not in the locker room after the game. He was not in the locker room today at locker cleanout, and his locker was already cleaned out. And when we talked to Caleb Williams, he said he had not talked to DJ Moore yet about that play. He kind of chalked it up to a miscommunication, but here's more what he had to say on it.
Trying to just flatten him off under safety. And since the other safety was down, I felt like we had enough space over there, so tried to flatten him off, and just a miscommunication. His route is, to go deep and attack that angle, which he did. And We thought we were going to go under the safety at that point, and it didn't happen that way.
And so I think after that play, and you watch the route that DJ Moore ran, and you hear the commentary from Chris Collinsworth about how he feels like he kind of gave up on the route. I just don't think there's a good conversation around DJ Moore right now. And I think you look at the direction of this franchise, knowing that they drafted Luther Burden, they have a similar play style, and I would imagine that they have an idea of making Luther Burden their DJ Moore next year. And so I think he's going to be one that we're going to look out for. I think there was a little bit of a surprise that he didn't talk, and that's a choice that the player makes. And so he obviously didn't want to address it either. And I found that to be interesting and telling as well.
Yeah, I'm surprised that he didn't talk. I've always felt him to be a stand-up guy. Hey, Bears were so good at forcing turnovers this season, but against the Packers and Rams, they did not force one. Still, that defense did a terrific job, Cassie. Held LA to 17 points before the winning field goal. You hold the NFL's most explosive team to 20, and the probable MVP to 0 touchdown passes, you're thinking, hey, we're going to win this game, right?
I mean, sitting in the press box, we were like, oh my gosh, this defense was playing with their hair on fire. And I didn't think that Sean McVay called the best game. Stafford didn't play the best game. And I do think that the weather impacted the conditions. Cole Kmet, I think part of his disappointment after the game too was he said, these conditions should play in our favor. And you just didn't get the imbalance in that, like I think a lot of people anticipated, because the Bears offense couldn't get much going at points in this game. But I mean, the Rams looked beatable. I think that's what's so frustrating and what makes the abrupt end feel worse, because you feel like going into that game, or I would say even at the beginning of the season, I thought the Rams were going to be Super Bowl contenders, and I still think they can be. But just the way the Bears defense showed up in a game where they knew they had to, I was like, wow, can you imagine if they played that way all season long? And I think you look at the defense, and while there definitely needs to be changes made, a lot of those guys are free agents, and you just wonder who on this defense will be back. We just talked about Brisker. We just talked about Byard. Will Nashawn Wright be back? Will they try to trade Tyreek Stevenson, who had up and down playing time, especially down towards the end of the season? Are they going to bring in an edge rusher? These are all questions that I think you start thinking about when just looking at how they can improve this team and improve this roster to try to get back to where they were this season and years to come. And the defense, I mean, they left it all out there on the field. That was one of the most fun experiences, seeing how loud it was at Soldier Field when the defense was on the field and they were trying to make it so tough for Matthew Stafford in this offense, and they really did. They held Puka Nacua in check. They held Devontae Adams in check. The Rams didn't have much of a running game. I mean, it was really a complete defensive performance, which was fun, but also I think that kind of adds to the sting a little bit, because I don't think anyone expected that.
Yeah, the crowd did its job, that's for sure. Does Ben Johnson regret his play calling last night?
Ben Johnson, we're going to hear from him later in the week. We didn't get a chance to talk to him today, but he was asked a couple times about different play calls that he had, going for it on 4th down multiple times early in the game, not going for 2 after the Cole Kmet touchdown to just go for the win. I think you could debate all those as many times as you want. I do kind of agree with him, though, of not going for 2, instead trying to send the game to overtime, because I just don't think the offense had the moxie in the red zone yesterday. And so I think the chance to just play it safe, he was leaning on the feeling of his team. Now, I didn't really mind him going for 4th down early in the game, because I felt like we knew this game was going to be high scoring. And then when he wasn't, then you're like, oh, they should have just taken the points. But I think you can reflect back on that all you want. I think if there's anything we've learned about Ben Johnson and knowing where he came from, being under Dan Campbell, is he's going to stay true to his identity and what he believes. And that's going to be being aggressive on offense. And I think he'd rather go down in that sense rather than playing it safe in a lot of ways. So we could talk about it all we want. It'll be interesting to hear what he has to say, because he is an accountable guy later in the week when we do hear from him.
All right, I want to go look ahead now. Do the Bears feel like they're set up to win 11 games again and get back to the divisional round and maybe even go another round to the NFC title game?
I mean, a lot of the talk right now, I think that's looking pretty far ahead, because they just don't know what the roster is going to look like. If anything, the position that they're in right now is good, because they have a foundation set with their head coach, who has totally changed the culture inside the building here. He said a lot of players have said they have the resiliency. They have what part of the foundation I think is important is they know the formula to get back to where they are. And what Caleb Williams said today is that starts in OTAs and training camp of knowing the kind of work ethic you need to put in, having tough practices, practicing outside in the cold all season long. Those are all the important things that matter towards the end of the season. And even DeAndre Swift said it after the game. He said something along the lines of like, he worked harder than ever before. And that's a different approach or a different mindset that even he's had to have. And that's all thanks to Ben Johnson. And so, yes, you have your coach here. You also have your quarterback here. And I think that is going to be what's going to make free agency really interesting, because when you have a quarterback that has all those crazy plays, you think of the throw to Rome Odunze last week, you think of the touchdown throw to Cole Kmet to send that game to overtime. I think we all saw the look on McVay's face when he saw that Cole caught that ball and Caleb threw it. I think it was 51 yards through in the air.
He's
That's
like,
insane.
oh man, it's going to happen to me.
Bears, right. He's like, wow. That's going to change free agency for the Bears for the first time in forever, right? The guys are going to want to come here to play for Ben Johnson and to be part of what Caleb Williams and that magic. And so I think that's what's going to make the future so interesting, to see how many guys want to come here and how this suddenly becomes a destination for stars.
All right, well then, that's a nice segue to my next question. Where do they need to get better? I know they need an edge rusher. They're going to need some secondary help if they don't re-sign Kevin Byard, Jaquan Brisker. Who knows what happens with C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Tyreek Stevenson. A lot of question marks there. Edge rusher. On the offensive side of the football, left tackle, because Ozzie Trapillo will be lost most of next season. What are they going to do at that position? Is Theo Benedict going to be the guy? Are they going to move Tooney to left tackle and let Jordan McFadden, who I thought played well, play left guard? I mean, there's a lot of question marks, and maybe they need another running back, because we really didn't see much of Roschon Johnson this year. What do you think they need to do to get better?
I mean, the number one priority has got to be on that defensive line in my mind. The way they were so inconsistent of getting pressure, and Dennis Allen had to get so creative with different blitz packages to really affect a quarterback, I think is the most glaring need. And, Montez Sweat will still be here. You wonder if they truly do bring in another elite blue chip pass rusher for the other side, if that would really free them up a little bit more. But I think that's got to be priority number one, because all those good teams that we look at, all the good teams that the Bears played, the number one concern was that the opposing defensive line. Then I think the secondary moves are going to be interesting. I think how Jalen Johnson comes back, coming off of a season where he wasn't fully healthy. He underwent surgery, came back, is going to be really interesting. What they do with Nashawn Wright, who at one point I felt like really deserved and earned a long-term contract in Chicago. Towards the end of the season, that kind of changed a little bit with just how he played. And if they want to try to get rid of Tyreek Stevenson, I think those are all really interesting moves. The Kevin Byard thing, I see value in Kevin Byard because of his veteran status. I don't think you can understate that. And I think Ben Johnson made it pretty clear throughout the season just how important he was to the locker room. And then, leading the league in interceptions too is key. And he's on the back half of his career now. I think he still has a lot he wants to prove. And as I mentioned before, he said he wants to stay in Chicago if that's a possibility. So I think edge rusher would be number one. Left tackle, I don't think Joe Tooney left tackle is the right long-term fix, because you have your entire interior offensive line that came together, and I want to say they're all on a 3-year deal, because that was what we were talking about last week, where that's the window, right? It was a 3-year window. Yep. Because you had the offensive line guys, and so I feel like you want to keep those guys together. They played so well. They're the reason why you were in the position you were to go into the playoffs. So I think left tackle is another key position. All those premium positions that we seem to be talking about over and over and over is going to be what the Bears are going to be eyeing again. And I just think, for a handful of years, they've kind of found quick fixes for a lot of those positions. And now I feel like it's time where they need to draft or go out and get a big splash in free agency.
Yeah, for sure. It's been a long ride for you all season long at Halas Hall, Soldier Field for the games, on the road with the Bears. How much did you personally appreciate this experience?
This season was incredible. It's interesting, throughout the game, you get a lot of texts from friends, family, people who come out of the woodworks and they're like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, I don't have time to answer this right now. A lot of the season, you get caught up in it. It's an 8-month season for us, and really it's become a 12-month season for us. The NFL is 24/7. And so I don't know if I fully appreciated everything yet, but I'm sure I will have a moment at some point this week when we don't come up here to Halas Hall, when we don't go into the locker room and talk to the guys, or there's no game to look forward to. This is my first winning Bears season that I've covered, now my 4th season, and if I could only explain the difference of the experience of covering a winning team compared to a 3-win team, a 5-win team, it is quite the stark contrast, and this is one that I'll always remember. The heart palpitations I got in the press box week after week, the belief even of last night, I was like, okay, I'm supposed to go down and do a hit on the field if they win. They were down 7, 2-minute warning. I'm like, I think I still need to go down. And to see Cole Kmet catch that ball in the end zone, standing on the field and the crowd erupting, I mean, those are all incredible memories that I'll have forever. And so I have the best job in the world. It's so fun. I'm so lucky to be around this team and to cover every good moment, bad moment, in-between moment. It is truly the best ever. So it's been an incredible ride this season.
Cassie, you were terrific all year long. What a season. It's been an honor that is for me to work alongside with you. And in a month, hey, it's going to be time for the NFL Scouting Combine, and you always nail it out there in Indianapolis. You're always getting all the big guests, so I can't wait for that, right?
Oh, I know. It's like, all right, the new NFL season is here in a month. Let's go.